This is a presentation that I designed just to show you one fraud cover that I recently bought, and then it took a unusual turn, and it ended me up in a new place. So I thought I'd just show you this and see where I've come out on it. And what I want to do is talk about one of my fraud organizations uh, via a small Colombian adventure. Okay, a brief look at the 5 centavos rate to the United States, and now it's ended up a little beyond. So the organization, just to give you a one slide background for anybody who doesn't remember or is new, the New York Institute of Science is one of the fraud organizations that I collect. They were in Rochester, New York. Um, and what they did was they sold a home study course in hypnotism, magnetic healing, magnetic medicine, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a copy of the course they sold at the right. The charge was $5. These are $1910. So that's equivalent to about $100 in today's purchasing power. And this scam out of Rochester was so successful that they developed another 6 scams, and we're running all of them out of the organization from Rochester. So with that brief introduction, uh, let me just show you. Here's a typical everyday $5 to $10, five centavos cover to the New York Institute of Science. Somebody in Colombia had gotten an information package and was writing back to them about something. Unfortunately, it's a very nice letter. It's on the envelope enclosed in the information package back to Rochester. But the date stamp is too lightly struck to be able to read the town of origin. But I can read the date of posting, and it's July 26, 1928, 1908, pardon me. And it's just a simple little inexpensive cover, but to me, I just enjoy things like that. I tried to bring up the town of origin via one of the image enhancement programs, but I couldn't do it. You can read the Colombia, but you can't read the town of origin. Here's another one. This is the 5 centavo rate, overpaid by one centavo, with a couple of different varieties of the 2 centavo stamp. And the nice thing about it is it's from a tiny little village called Tequeres, pardon my Spanish, Colombia, and it's got a beautiful transit mark from the village of Tumaco, which is on the coast. And the Commercial Correspondence Schools were one of the new fraud creations of the New York Institute of Science. So that 5 centavos rate is overpaid by 1 centavos. And as I said, there are 2 different varieties of the 2 centavos stamp there. And this one, if you use the image enhancement program, it works quite well. And you can very clearly see the town of origin. And I just threw in a Google map. If you go to the southwestern part of Colombia, you can see this little village of Tuqueres, and the letter traveled up Route 10 to Tumaco, probably got on a ship to some major port to go through the Panama Canal and on to New York and Rochester. The Commercial Correspondence Schools, what did they do? Just a little more on the ephemera. They sold a home study course in business, and here's the vice president saying, "Let me train your boy for business." And down at the bottom are 8 individual chapters of this course that they sold, this correspondence course. I was fortunate enough to get one of them, and it's How to Become a Good Writer. To me, that was a little confusing title for a sub-course. Is that becoming a good writer in terms of use of English, or is it becoming a good writer in terms of use of penmanship? And it turns out it was penmanship. And this was how to practice your penmanship and work at it such that you went into business, you had a very, very readable and pleasant to see handwriting. And they had a whole course in that, which probably cost you $5 just for that course. So going back to the 5 centavos, you can add registry to these letters, and here's the registered 15 centavo rate. There's the 5 centavo, which pays the postage to the United States. And then Colombia used registry stamps, so you have the registry stamp where there's a place for the registry number to be penned in by the post office. And what makes this one really very, very nice is you see that little manuscript AR. This is a registered letter, so it contains some sort of monetary vehicle to buy something from the New York Institute of Science. It might have been the basic course. But they also requested a return receipt. And the village of Altamira maybe didn't have an AR hand stamp, so they did it by manuscript, okay? And the way it worked is the actual returned receipt at this time, 1906, accompanied the outgoing registered letter, and then it was processed by the post office of arrival and sent back to the post office of sending. Nicely, it has transits on the back, one from New York, not transit, but transit from New York, and the Rochester arrival, as a registered letter should have.
Do you know what those numbers are on there?
The printed ones, yeah, those are the registry numbers at New York and Rochester. That was part of the registry system. As a registered letter came in, it had to be assigned a registry letter, and it was normally printed on the envelope, and that was recorded in the documentation for registration. So one of them is Rochester, the other one is New York, but I'm not sure which is which. And this is why I started this way, because this is the cover I wanted to show you, where somebody has used a bisect of the 10 centavo stamp, okay, of the period. It was posted from the small village of Altamira, which is in the state of Huila. Again, pardon my Spanish. It's November 24th, 1908, and it's franked at the 5 centavos rate to the U.S. The stamp is a bisect of the current 10 centavo stamp. And fortunately, this didn't have to be, it wasn't a requirement, but when it got on the train from New York to Rochester, it got a railroad cancel, Rochester NYR, New York Railroad. I can't read the day on the date, but the railroad transit confirms the transit to the destination, and this really proceeded through the mail as a bisect. And interestingly, you can see here somebody has penciled in Harry, and that's a piece of information too. Harry was probably the first name of the guy who managed all the correspondence from the Spanish-speaking countries, which would be Central and South America, and then Spain and its colonies. So this is a close-up on the lower right of the actual bisect. And now we're talking about a couple of bucks for this cover. And it's starting to get a little more serious. Well, that's where I was going to stop, but it struck me an aside mystery has come up relating to the Commercial Correspondence Schools. The New York Institute of Science and its related organizations were put out of business by the post office and the government organizations in November 1914. There was a big trial, and they were all convicted, except for the major guy, E. Virgil Neil Xenophon Lamott Sage. He somehow got out of it all and went to France and started another business. But what has happened, what I've noted in preparing this presentation, I started looking for letters to the Commercial Correspondence School in my collection, and I see that I have a number after 1914, when the New York Institute of Science was put out of business, such as the very one I showed you. It's from 1919, which is November, so that's 5 years after the New York Institute of Science was put out of business. So the Commercial Correspondence Schools was continuing, and I started looking to see what I could find in my collection, and lo and behold, I found this one posted from Panama in 1915, a year after the prosecution of the NYIS. And interestingly, it's franked with a revenue stamp, The revenue stamp was accepted at the post office of origin, Las Lajas, and was also accepted by the town of David in the canal area. You know, it's kind of unusual to see the revenue stamp used as postage. I don't have any background information on that. So I started looking further and I found in my collection, this is a recent addition from Nigeria to the Commercial Correspondence Schools. And this one is all the way into 1924. Okay, it was received at Rochester at the East Avenue station in Rochester in 1924, and it was forwarded to Syracuse. Note the E in that Syracuse. So now we're talking about 10 years later, and we're still seeing the existence of the Commercial Correspondence Schools. Then I found another one in my collection from Kumasi in the Gold Coast, also to the Commercial Correspondence Schools. Got to the East Avenue Station post office in Rochester, and again it was forwarded by the same hand. You can see that strange E there onto Syracuse. So in the 1920s, we're getting mail to the Commercial Correspondence School in Syracuse. And the most interesting one is this one, which comes from San Juan, Puerto Rico in 1923. It was addressed to Rochester. It was then forwarded to Syracuse by the same hand. Again, you see that unusual E at the end there. And then it got the auxiliary marking return to writer, the reason being that the addressee was unknown. So there's something going on with the Commercial Correspondence Schools that had a life. It had a life well beyond the New York Institute of Science, and there's more to yet be revealed. Nobody's who's interested in the New York Institute of Science has noted this before, and this is where I stand, and maybe there's more to come. And that's where I end it.